Okay, welcome everyone to another cmBuilder workshop. This is Harry Potter's theme, my favorite movie of all time, favorite book. So yeah, let's start with this. Okay, so our agenda for today is to learn a little bit more about the user permissions. We had like a lot of requests lately about this management of like different people in different team having access to scenarios, having access to projects, and so on. So we're gonna go a little bit on overall for that. After that, we're gonna talk about the review tools, right? So like how to do measurements, how to do sections, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna also remind about the graphic settings. I've lately we had a couple people talking about performance in their computers, and once I got in there and checked, like I could figure out that the graphic settings was not quite well done the way that it should be. So I'm just gonna touch base on that. After we're going to talk about the referencing elements, how you manage them, and some tips and tricks, right? So as usual, the recording will be available in 24 hours, and we have a lot of other workshops on YouTube to check in, and also put in on the QA session. Javi and Isha and other people on the call will be able to help me with that. Okay, so yeah, so there are two spheres of permissions that we have in cmBuilder. One is in the company level, and the other one is at the project level, right? So I'm gonna open over here a project. Oh, sorry, an account in cmBuilder, so we can understand a little bit about them. So the listing of the projects that I see on the homepage is dependent on those permissions. So for you to set up the permissions at the company level, you're going to open the company settings, click on user management, and in here we can start playing around a little bit. The people that have access to this and they are able to do these permissions to invite people in, to change access and things like that, are the people that have admin roles in the company. So the first person that creates account will be an admin and owner at the same time, and he or she can invite new people in as admins or change their permissions and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the list of all the users, and for everyone that wants to invite new users to cmBuilder, they click over here and invite users, and then just bring in new people, defining their role, and then you can add more and more people to this list, right? So if I put over here my email, P. Souza, and I add to this list, I'm going to show up in here in the bottom, and I can keep adding more people and then send invites all at once. Okay, so we also have the concept of teams, but I'm going to talk about that later. And I'm going to open over here roles and permissions. So the roles and permissions, when you click on that, you can see two tabs over here on the top. So you have project roles and company roles. Keep in mind that this is very focused on the admin roles at the company, but I just like talking about this so people can understand a little bit how manager, internal user, and external user. Once you start clicking on this, you're going to see that the permissions that those people have will change over here. So you see admins can edit the company general settings, branding, unit preferences, have like full on user management capabilities. But if I go into manager, you see that some of these items will change, right? So instead of editing, now the manager can view the company settings, they can view the unit preference, they can view subscription, but they cannot change it, right? If you want to adjust these permissions, you can click on edit, and this will open the this little page for you to just decide what that role will be able to do on this within these features, right? So you see that if I change my managers right now to not be able to create new projects, and then kind of like a strike, so there will be a strike through over here to let you know that this is not available for this company role anymore. Okay, so other different settings for this, and the external user by default is the one that has less permissions than anyone. Okay, so everyone that is invited from the platform by default, if I click to invite a new user over here, keep in mind that these people will always be invited as internal users first, unless that they are managers or something like that. And this will allow you to see over here, for example, when I click on these roles, I can see which people are assigned to each one of these roles inside of my company. Okay, so this is a quick overview about the company rules, and the company rules are more related to the access to overall platform of the application. Cool. project roles is a little bit different. So the project roles will define what people can do inside the project sphere. So you see over here, every project role will have an admin, an editor, view-only admin, and viewer. So these are the different project roles that you have, but you can create a custom one if you want as well, and then custom ones will show up over here in the bottom. So when you, again, the same thing, when you click on these, you'll see what the admin can do, the editor can do, the view-only admin can do, and so on and so forth. Okay, so project roles will define what those people can do inside the project. So for example, edit the project information, create new scenarios, edit scenarios, view the project information in all scenarios, so on and so forth. Okay, you can also create your own teams. So teams can be used for different reasons. Let's say different departments, different I don't know, company roles that you have internally, different, let's say, offices or something like that, right? So you can create teams to set up a group of permissions to a specific team. So when I click on tasks over here, and I can define which users are inside that team. However, the permissions that you have in here, you can also add those permissions to a whole team if you want to inside the project. Okay. So this is on the project, on the company level, right? So the permissions and roles that you have that you can manage at the company level. So let's now see the permissions inside a project. So when I open a project in cmBuilder, I will see this page that everybody knows, where you have like all your scenarios and all your project information. However, if you click over here in project settings, you see that you also have the project roles definition over here. So this project role definition roles inside what are the project roles. So this is just letting you know that all admins at the company level will be a project admin. All managers at the company level will be a project editor. And you can add your exceptions over here as well. So if I want to add an exception, I can click on this and say, hey, I want Callum to be an viewer instead of an editor, right? So we can want him to be admin instead of an editor. So when I do that and I add this exception, you see that all managers at the company will be project editors except Callum. That is,
yep. On this, one of the benefits of the platform is it's unlimited users, and you can invite, team members, internal, external. But what's the appropriate role, and how do you manage access, right? So at the project level, you can basically create exceptions. Like you can say, okay, in general, this person's this role, but at this project level, I want them to be the admin of that project, or I want them to be an external user, meaning they only can view, right? They can't create content. So there's some strategies around, like, internal user can create new content, maybe from an external company or like a sub-trade or something you're working with. You could maybe just keep them as external user as their overall company role, but in that project, make them an internal user, make that person an internal user, and they can create new content inside the project only that you've granted it. So it's just some kind of configuration type stuff. Apologies for the bad connection. Right, go ahead.
For the exceptions and managing this in a different way, you can also add the whole team as an exception to this list, right? So you can create your own teams and then assign the permissions to a whole team if you want. So this is a way for you to bulk manage different people. And the other thing that is interesting is that whenever you create a new project in cmBuilder, you have the option to create a closed project or org-wide project. So a closed project means that everyone, this project is going to be limited in terms of access to most of people. So only admins and invited users will be able to access that project. Org-wide means that all the company roles will have their default access to this project. Okay, so you can change what the project is on this project settings in project roles. So you can change this. Right now, this is an org-wide project, and I can make it as a closed project by just clicking over here. So you have the ability to keep your invited users as exceptions and so on and so forth. So this is what I wanted to kind of like touch base on the permission for project and company levels as well, because this will allow you, as your usage of cmBuilder grows, you're going to have like more people coming into the platform, and the idea is individually or as a team if you want. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the review tools, right? So this is something that a lot of people don't know where to find these tools to help you like create measurements, sections, and so on. And this is something that you can use both when you're working in cmBuilder as an editing kind of like capabilities. You're creating a simulation, you're drawing things, and you're moving objects around. So you can use the review tools over here in the bottom. But remember that you can also add the review tools like the measurement, section views, and so on to your presentation slides. We will talk about that. But when I focus on this over here, now this shape of the excavation, let's say that I want to measure the distance between the shape, like how wide this excavation is. So you can click on the review over here at the bottom. And when you click on that, you're going to have 4 different options of review tools. So the first one is called minimum distance. So the way that this tool works is that you click on a location, let's say on this wall, and then you will be able to click on another location, and the distance, what's being measured over here is exactly the orange line. So it's the minimum distance between this point and the surface in which this other point is contained, right? So it's not a distance between 2 points, it's the distance between this point and that surface. So for example, if I make the same measurement, but I choose the ground, regardless where my point is on the ground over here, the distance is going to be the same because I'm measuring the distance between this point and the surface in which this point is contained. If I make 2 measurements on the same surface, there will be no distance because they are contained on the same surface. Okay, so this is a way for you to quickly measure, especially things like this, like width, like height, and so on and so forth, without having to find exactly which point it is that you're selecting. This is a fast way for you to get those distances. Okay. And whenever you start making these measurements, you can always click on them, right click on them and remove, or you can clear all over here from the bottom. So this is the minimum distance option. And then we have the measured distance option. So the measured distance will be kind of like a similar one, but the difference is that you are actually having a decomposed measurement for the distance between the actual points. This is now not point to surface. This is at point to point, right? So it's the distance between actual points, right? Like the straight distance. But also we have these components over here that are showing me like what is the Z difference between this point, and the Y and X. One thing about the Y and X is that they will always be aligned with your true north. So if I align my view over here to true north, you're going to notice that Y is like aligned with the vertical and X is aligned with the horizontal. So we are doing a update on the tool for this quarter. So like in the next month, you should expect to have a project north ability to this to cmBuilder. We will be able to define what is going to be the project north, and these distances will be aligned with that. So this is the measured distance. And again, you can clear all, or you can click over here and do a clear for just that category. Another thing about this tool is that you can right click and view them as combined tags. So you can view them all in this fashion. I'm going to skip this custom section right now, and I'm going to go to the next one. Yes.
Pedro, can I ask a question? On
Yeah.
Just a true north, the idea is that the sketching grid and everything will align to true north as well, right? So not just reorientation. Yes. So if you're sketching a fence or excavation boundary or anything like that, it'll all align to the new true north, right? Okay.
Yeah. So right now, our north, if I type in north over here, we have a little resource that you can define what is going to be your north orientation. So by default, this is like a line with the true north. But let's say that you define your project north to be something like this. Now, every time that you draw a shape, or you do a measurement, or you add a resource to the site, those elements will be referenced to your true north, right? So I just added this one over here as example, but let's say, for example, that I add a office. So when I put in this container office, you see that it is right now aligned with the true north. But let's say that I define that my project north is going to be like this. So now every time that I add a resource from my library, the resource will be placed aligned with my true north. Okay, so this is the idea of a next. This is coming next, is not available yet, but it's going to be added to the platform soon. So going on to the next one, the sea level elevation measurement. So this one will allow you to define what is going to be, what is the sea level for a specific point. And you see that the value keeps changing as I move. So it's measuring in real time, but you can click to add like a measurement to a specific elevation, right? So this is good for you to kind of like focus on like understanding what is these elevations, but also to measure if the terrain that was created by default is accurate enough for you to work, or if you need to do any adjustments using the custom terrain tool. Okay, so this sea level elevation is a pretty good one. I use this a lot. So for example, let's say that you're working with a model and you don't know where to place this model on the Z axis. You can simply measure like a known elevation from a drawing or from your original file. You can see what is the sea level elevation in cmBuilder. And let's say that your original file tells you that this is going to be actually 162. You can move now this model to by the difference, right? To get to that 162. So I can move this down by doing like a little mathematical operation over here and say I want to move by the difference of the actual like elevation that I want in the current elevation. So when I hit enter, my model is going to move down a little bit. And then if I measure this again, you see that it's going to be, oh, I moved just one of the models, not the, the other one, but it's on 62 over here, as you can see, right? So this is the one that I moved. So this is a good way for you to like work with like absolute references, but keep in mind that if you're working with absolute references, like positioning your model where exactly it's supposed to be on the sea level elevation, you should always check your terrain around that area, because the terrain that is created by default is coming from a satellite scan. It might not be as accurate to fit the actual 3D model. So it's a good practice to always check like these elevations on your terrain if you're working with absolute references. And now let's go into the sectioning tool. So the sectioning tool is over here in the bottom. And if you click on custom section, you have to click on a known like surface. So the software will align that sectioning with that surface. So for example, if I click on the custom section and click on this wall, it's kind of like following that reference over there, and so on and so forth, right? So another way to do this sectioning is by expanding this, and then you can see the already predefined planes. So usually we use a lot of the Z plane, but when you click on that, you're gonna see your Z plane over there, and you have the ability to move this up and down, right? And over here on the top, you have like a command to define if you want to invert the section or if you want to toggle the visibility. So let me hide the surrounding model over here for one quick second. And let's focus on our 3D model over there. So if you lose the Z arrow, you just double click on that sectioning plane and the arrow will show up again. So you can drag this down to intersect with your model at a specific elevation. And now you're going to be able to see whatever is inside of that elevation. This button over here, we invert the section so you can see it from the bottom, or you can see it from the top. And this other button will toggle the visibility of your sectioning. So you see the plane is gone. And for me to now adjust that plane, I just have to clear the section and start again to adjust the plane. So this way you'll be able to see what's going on inside your building. You'll be able to do measurements, add objects to this area, and so on and so forth, without having to hide all the levels and all the elements that are above this this sectioning. Great. So this is a quick review of the review tools. And keep in mind that every time that you're creating a presentation and you have your slides showing up over here, you can add these sections and these kind of like measurements to your presentation slide. So these options are over here on the side. So you have the measure distance, you have the minimum distance, you have your sea level elevation, and you have your custom section tool over here as well. Cool. So you can add these objects to your slide. So for example, if I do a measure distance using minimum distance method, I can create this, and this item will show up over here on minimum distance. Same with the custom section and so on and so forth. So a lot of times people ask me like, oh, how can I work with showing, I don't know, an operation? For example, at this stage, I'm doing a specific type of work internally over here. So the way to do that is to, when you're doing your simulation, you can either hide these parts or you can create a section to review that area. Let me do that. This custom section tool, at first when you place it, it takes a little while for that to go in because it's just computing like all the references for that elevation. And you can now create a section like that, and then you can add your objects in here, and then you create your simulation, you add your objects, and at the moment that you're going to present, you can use the presentation and markup tool and then add a section view to review those objects that are internal to that location. Awesome. So these are our review tools. So let's go to the next item. So the next item is just a reminder about the graphic settings, right? So again, this is something that a lot of people start using cmBuilder and they don't go through the starting kind of like instructions and so on. And we usually tackle these on the onboarding session as well. So it's one of the first things that you need to do whenever you start working with cmBuilder, because you might have like a super beefy computer, a computer that has like the most amazing graphic card ever, a bunch of RAM memory, whatnot, not, but the performance might not be working okay on your builder session. And the reason why is because your browser is not set up to be using that graphics card. So there are two things that we need to do. And one good way to check if your browser is using the graphics card or not is to open the tools section over here, go into add performance. And then when you expand this, I can see the name of my graphics card on this line. If I cannot see the name or see a name of a different graphics card, it means that my cmBuilder session is not using the graphics card. So just a quick touch base on this. There are two things that you need to do. One is to go into the settings of your browser and then go into system and then turn this on, user graphics accelerations when available. For Edge, this is going to be a little bit different, but it's literally the same steps for you to click, right? So you click on settings, then system and performance, and then you're going to have like the same option over here, user graphics acceleration when available. Usually these are turned on by default on your browsers, so you probably won't need to worry about this one that much, but if that's the case, you should always check. And then the most important part is for you to set up the windows to read your graphics card and use your graphics card whenever you're working with a browser. So to do that, we're going to click on this Windows search function over here, and I'm going to type in graphics settings. So when I type in graphics settings, it's going to show up over here on the top for me. And then in this page over here, it depends if you were using Windows 10 or Windows 11. This page is going to be a little bit different, but both will have an option for you to browse a custom option for apps. So basically, when you click on this, you just need to find the browser application, literally the file to add to this list, so you can define what is going to be the performance that Windows will apply to it. So for Chrome, you will follow the path over here going to your C drive. It's going to be either in program files or program files x86. When you open that, there will be a Google folder. You open the Google folder, open Chrome folder, application, and then you select the Chrome executable file. So when you click on this, it will add that option to this list. And in here, whenever you have your browser, for people that use Edge, you're going to find Edge. For people that use Chrome, you're going to find Chrome. So in here, you're going to click on options, and then tell Windows to prefer what is your preference for graphics performance. So you should set up to be always use high performance instead of power saving, or let Windows decide. Always set up to be with high performance, because then Windows will know that it should be always using your graphics card whenever working with your browser. Okay. Keep in mind that like cmBuilder is a super light tool and can run in most of the computers, but of course it will depend. It is dependent on the specs that you have in your computer. So the better your graphics card, the better your performance will be.
Pedro,
Yep.
on this, I just wanted to share. Sometimes we've had a few people report that if you're using two screens and you just like drag your thing over, sometimes it can mess up with the default settings on your graphic card. So just keep an eye on that. If you all of a sudden see your performance just like drop to like almost unusable, and you and some big trigger like that, that would be the first place to look. Go check your configuration settings and make sure you didn't accidentally you have to just like restart the browser basically and start again and look at those settings. Sorry.
And it's a good thing that cmBuilder is running on the browser, because it keeps everything auto saved. So even, for example, if I had that problem that Javi just described, which can be caused by like it mainly is caused whenever you have like a scenario that it has a lot of different models, and it has a lot of textured models like these trees over here and so on, right? So when you have like scenarios that are too heavy on that side, and you keep changing like the browser window to another screen and then going back and so on and so forth, you might have an issue with that's going to show up over here in the bottom called WebGL context lost. So basically it just means that those changes were too fast for the browser to handle. So you just need to close and open again. But don't worry that, because all your work's going to still be saved because of the auto saving tool. Okay. Awesome. So let's go into the next step over here, which is managing reference elements. This is more related to whenever you want to bring in elements to your site that you want to use them as references, but you don't want them to either be part of your presentation, or if you don't want them to be clickable or something like that. You want them to be there, and you want them to not be on your way. Let's put it like that. So there are two things that I want to touch base about. This is the new locking behaviors and the disconnection from the timeline. So this might be quite basic for a couple people on the call, but a lot of people don't know much about this. So I'm going to just talk about that. So the first one, locking behaviors, is for you to define, for example, I brought in a new satellite image for this site. So the satellite image is over here, and I brought that using my drawing overlay tool, where I place in that screenshot of Google Maps, or it can be from a drone, it can be from Google Earth, whatever place you can find an image that shows the aerial, like a flat image from your site, you can import them over here. Okay. So when I bring this image in and I place this on my site, I will project that on the terrain to make it follow the terrain. However, now this is an object that is on the background of my site. So every time that I click on that object, that object will be selected. So this can be in the way of a lot of people. So like you're working with your model and you're like, oh, I accidentally clicked on this. Now I have to hit escape to deselect that. Or you click on the sky over there to deselect that. So we just recently made a change in the software where you can right click and lock this element. And when you lock it, this object will now be hatched like this. And I talked about this a little bit on the previous workshop, but this will have a hatch. But the difference now from the previous workshop to this one is that this item now cannot be clicked if I click once. So I'm clicking once over here on this background image, and I'm not able to select it anymore. But if I still, let's say that I still want to select it, I can double click and it will show that. But as you can see, I cannot edit a locked object. So I can double click to select it and then right click to unlock, right? So then it will become editable again, and then I can do whatever editing or additions that I want to do, the changes that I want to do to that object, okay? So usually for satellite images, I always keep them locked because they are always going to be on my background, but I don't want them to keep selecting them. That's the idea. You can also do the same for like imported models. So if you select a part of your imported model and you lock it, so the whole model now will be locked. So I just selected one part, but this whole model of the surroundings is now locked. And if I double click, I'll be able to select them. But if I click once, I can't select that object anymore. I'm clicking once over here right now. Okay, so to unlock these objects, again, you can double click and then unlock the model. And now you're ready to start working with it again. Cool. So this is a great way for you to have a lot of elements on your site that you don't want to be clicking at all times. And the second thing that I want to show over here is the disconnect from timeline. So I've seen on like a couple weeks, for the past couple weeks, a lot of people are using drawings and they have their drawings showed up on their scenarios and it's hovering on top of their site. So they have to keep temporarily hiding those drawings at all times and so on and so forth, instead of like just keeping them hidden by default. So the way to do that is by whenever you are working with a drawing, you can select this option over here that is disconnect from timeline. So disconnect from timeline means that that object is still in my scenario, is still on my list of objects over here, but it's basically hidden by default. So there are three different connections that you can do with cmBuilder with like an object. Is either you can disconnect it from timeline so that object will always be hidden and you can turn it on and off as you wish, or you can have that object showing from the beginning to the end, which is usually what I do for the satellite images, or you can have that object connected to the timeline by defining what is the first and the last milestone that that object's going to show. Okay. So right now, I just disconnected this drawing from my timeline, and oh, I just reconnected it from my timelines just to show this as an example. And I can remove this up over here. And when I hit done, now that drawing is visible at all times. Okay, so if I refresh the scenario, this drawing is going to still be here. But this is what I mentioned, that like a lot of people are working this way and they keep hiding the objects that they don't want. So basically, you just need to go into edit and disconnect it from the timeline, because now that object's going to be hidden by default. Okay, so whenever a drawing is hidden, like the one that I have right now, I can turn it on by going into drawing and then seeing over here the list of never show drawings, and then I can turn it on and off from here, or I can open my tree structure and I can turn that drawing on and off from here as well, right? Turn it on and off. Or my favorite is to go on tools, going to drawing overlay and turn that drawing on and off from here. Okay. So this is my favorite because it's right over here. I can see a list of all the disconnected drawings. And also I can do this while I'm working with other tools. Let's say that I'm drawing a 3D line right now and I need that drawing as a reference. I can go over here in tools and just turn that drawing on and then keep working. Okay. So this is how you manage your drawings in, not drawings, but any reference elements that you want to put in cmBuilder. So for example, sometimes you're doing a line that will represent a path of a truck or something like that. So for example, if I want to do this line over here to represent that path, and I hit confirm, you see that line is showing over there at all times, but I don't want to see that. I want just to see the truck. When I create the animation for it, I can simply go over here and disconnect my line from the timeline. So this is hidden now, and the way to see that line is just going on your little tree structure over here and finding that line that is going to be hidden by default. Okay. So this is how you manage your referencing elements, by locking them and disconnecting them from the timeline. You can always choose like a mix and match of these two options. So now let's go into our tips and tricks, right? So tips and tricks. The first one that I chose over here is using zones to change background graphics. I've seen a couple people sometimes using not just the zones, but also the fill action, right? So to create, let's say, a specific area in a different color, right? Because with your excavation tools, you can create, like, for example, a fill, and then this action will be placed over here, and you put in like a fill to a terrain, and you create like a little offset. Let's put it like that. And I've seen some people using this as a way to change the color of the background, either with a fill or with a masking. But my suggestion, because you can change the color over here, right? So you can make that color like green or something like that. Sometimes you want to make it look like asphalt or something like that, and then you change the color and you get the feel like that. So this is one option, but excavation operations as if you keep creating more and more excavation operations, this can bog down your performance a little bit if it's too many complex excavations. So my suggestion for something like this that is way easier to manage is by going into your project setup and clicking on zones, and then you draw a zone on that area. So zones can be used for different reasons, and my zone is not showing up over here because it's behind the element that I created over there. Let me just bring this guy up and then project it down. Okay, there you go. So these elements that you place in the zones, they would change the color of your background, but you can use this for like to create asphalt, for example, right? So the stage that you're building up asphalt or not, you can paint the ground with if you have the premium or up subscription, you can apply a texture to it. But if you don't, you can simply go here and create a color that will look like asphalt for you, right? So it's your option. And also other things that I use zones for are to do this, right? So whenever you're placing elements on top of a satellite image, those elements can blend too much with the background. So you see over here, I from afar, I might not be able to see exactly that I have containers over here in my tanks. But if I have a zone that is a little bit white or the color of your preference, let's say yellow, this will highlight and kind of like detach these elements from the background, and you can kind of like play around with the opacity of this to see if you to define what is the, the type of opacity that you want for this element. Okay, so usually whenever I'm creating like a project in cmBuilder that is quite a large project, or I'm working with my satellite backgrounds and so on, I usually create a zone like this to kind of like highlight that area as my working area, you know. So basically, you can use zones to define excavation steps as well. You can define paving, and you can highlight your construction areas. Cool. The second one over here is the removing the terrain GLB when you're done. So I've noticed a couple people creating like custom terrains with your GLB files, right? So a GLB file is a surface file that you can import into cmBuilder, and that surface file will define your a new terrain. So let's say, for example, that I imported this file over here, positioned in the right location, and then that file will now be used to create a custom terrain. So when I apply the custom terrain tool using that file, you're going to get like something like this. However, the GLB file cannot be disconnected from the timeline. So when I open this, there's no option for me to disconnect this file from the timeline. And if you hide this object right now, that object is going to be temporarily hidden. And every time that I refresh my scenario, that object is going to come back into my view. So and the other option that you have is to attach this object to a specific date so you won't see it. However, like you can simply remove that object from your scenario. So when I bring in a GLB file and I create a terrain, and that terrain is to my liking, and I'm done with that object, and I just use it as a reference for my terrain, I simply remove it from the scenario, because removing the terrain from the scenario will not delete your custom terrain. Your custom terrain is still created, but the object's simply not there because I only imported that to have it as a reference, right? So if you want to bring back, or if you want to adjust the custom terrain tool in any way, the moment that you click on object and go into custom terrain, you will, if you start editing the terrain that you created using that object as a reference, the object's going to come back, right? So you can do whatever you want with this custom terrain tool. And then when you're done, you simply remove that from your scenario, and that's it. Cool. So I've seen people working with like a GLB file in there, like a surface file that represents a terrain, and they don't know what to do with that. So this is the way you simply remove that from your scenario, and it won't impact your custom terrain tool. The two other things that I want to talk about on the tips and tricks are just like a reminder of a couple things from our support team, right? So we have a new booking system now. So if you go into the question mark and click on book a support session, this will open this new page where you can choose which type of support session you want. If you want to create an onboarding session, which is basically something that is longer, and you can it's usually used for like news team training, or if you want to talk about a specific feature, like I want to know more about how to import drones data into cmBuilder. I want to know more about how to use the custom terrain tool, so an onboarding session is the best way to do that because it will give you introductory to that feature or to the platform as a whole. And support session is for more specific small things, like I don't know how to move my building, I don't know how to project the terrain, a drawing of the terrain, things like that. That is like smaller kind of asks. You can book a support session for a 15 to 30-minute session. Okay, so both of them, when you click, it will show up the calendars of our team. And now we changed a little bit on the back end over here, the way that these sessions are booked. So you guys are now more options available for times. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And the way to access this is just by going into the question mark and clicking to book a support session. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today is that I know that a lot of you have amazing ideas about cmBuilder and how the tools should work and like things that you would like to see added to the platform and so on and so forth. So for all of those ideas and all of those requests of changes and things like that, you can talk to our team very quickly by putting a feature request. So a feature request will let us know what is important for you and what we should be building next, right? So it's great to hear feedback from you just to know what we should be developing. And this is the best way for you to put this in because it will go directly into the managing of our items in the backlog. But also if we review each one of these feature requests. So if we already have something in the platform that will solve the problem that you described over here, we will reach out and like suggest you a different tool or like a workaround or something like that, that you will be able to reach the same objective, the same result with the tools that are in there without having to wait for a new feature to be developed. Okay. So these are my tips and tricks for today. And I think that's it. Do you have any considerations, Javi?
No, I think if there's any questions or if there's something that people are working on right now, please feel free to drop them in the chat here. Thanks for your patience working through the Wi-Fi challenges. Appreciate everyone doing that.
Yeah,
it's a new era. It's the Zoom and Teams era. Hey, you don't take it with that.
Yeah, so just to wrap up over here, our session today, the recap of what we talked about was the user permissions, the review tools, right? How to set up your graphic settings and how to manage the reference elements that they won't be on your way, right? So the main part of our workshop today is done, right? So it has concluded. We won't like talk about anything else, but if you want to hang around for a QA session or like ask us a question right now, this is the time. But also just to let you know that we are going to reach out for email with a recording of the session and just a little survey link so you can let us know what are the things that you think they're important for workshops like this, or things that you don't like, things that you want us to cover on the next sessions. And if you have any questions about cmBuilder at all, you can just reach out to our team on the support@cmbuilder.io, or just going over here on the chat and talking to us. This is a direct link to our team. So this is the fastest way for you to get a new answer from us.
Hey, yeah, I have two additional questions, Pedro. First of all, can you just show people how you can get to the support center if you don't know where the support center is? And there's lots of good stuff in there. If you log in the support center, you can make sure you're logged in while you're in the support center. There's additional things like you can look at the product roadmap and stuff like that, I believe.
Yeah. So the support center is accessible from the question mark as well. And this will open like a a whole portal dedicated to help you guys learn and understand the platform, so you can like search for anything over here. So I want to know more about excavation. There will be like a bunch of things over here in your excavation results. I want to know how to bring in the Google images into cmBuilder, right? So so on and so forth. But you can also go through the getting started or send this to like people that are just joining your company, starting to use cmBuilder, or you can also watch the tutorials that we have over here. So a bunch of fun stuff for you to check. And one great thing is the roadmap and release notes. So this will open you this view for you to check the roadmap and so on that we already talked about on the last session.
Hey, yeah.
Cool.
My second question is, can you share your camera and show us your forehead? You worked hard for that, man. You got to show that with pride. There it is. There it is. It took a while. It was a long walk. That joke was a long walk. But hey, you know, when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. So
Yeah.
you just had, I mean, people. He tried. He really tried hard. But it didn't go exactly our way. But that's okay. Good job, Pedro. And we'll hang out here for a few minutes. Sometimes people might have questions they're working through right now on a project or something like that. You know, feel free to pop it in there, or like Pedro said, you can just go ahead and book a session with us, or reach out to us directly.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. We're gonna hang around for a couple minutes more.
Thank you. Cue the music or what?
Cue the music.
Oh, I got a question. Are you working on letting us favor the resource for quick access?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Are you working on letting us favorite the resources for quick access?
The resource for quick access. Well, this is we are working on a different tool related to resources, but in terms of favorites, we don't have that yet. So if you want to put in, that's a perfect cue for me to show you that you can put in a feature request over here, right? So like a lot of people request like a bunch of different stuff, and don't worry about like requesting things that people already requested, because this is way better for us, because then we know that this is important, right? So whoever asked that question, you can just put in a feature request and just like say, I favorite resources, something like that. And then you can just like type in what you need over here. So like, I would like to save some favorite resources that I usually use.
But yeah, Josh, that is part of some of the stuff we have planned for. We have a lot of interesting things planned for the resource, the catalog, and that's one of them that a few people have asked. Oh, someone had a question. Someone raised their hand. Oh,
It was Josh.
oh, Josh. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we have also, for those who are in other markets, like in the UK or something like that, and they want to just like be able to put all the UK-based resources at the top, or Australia, for example. That's another use case, being able to kind of filter the stuff based on what you use most.
There you go. Cool.
I thought you know, if we had more time and if we didn't have the Wi-Fi challenges, we could have dropped a couple Easter eggs literally in the product.
Yeah,
Literal Easter eggs. Come on, Cohen. Where's Cohen at? We should have some bunny resources in the catalog. Animate using the visual graph to have bunnies chasing chocolates on the slab.
Yeah.
Tough crowd.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a good time for us to wrap up then, if there are no
Yeah, it
questions.
doesn't seem like there's any other questions coming in. So one more. Any suggestion on how we can lock scenarios if we don't want someone with editing rights to edit a certain scenario?
They want someone with editing rights to edit a certain scenario. So the only option for locking the scenario right now is this button over here at the top, that you prevent someone from editing the scenario right away, but that person that has an edit right on the project is still going to be able to unlock it, right? So the permission levels that we have are company and project. So we don't have like individual permissions level per scenario, but it's something that other people have requested as well, and we added that to our backlog. But again, we will just put in a feature request for you, for both of you. I'm gonna put in the feature request for these two tools that you just mentioned right now.
All right, Pedrocito, thank you very much.
Thank
Looks
you, everyone.
like that's it. Thanks,
Awesome.
everyone. Have a great holiday weekend, and see you next month for the next workshop.
See you next month. Bye.